Well, today we'd like to welcome Reid Ryan to the podcast. Welcome, Reid.
Jimmy, good to see you, man. How you doing?
Doing well. And I think it's interesting to mention how we kind of reconnected recently. It'd been a couple of years, I suspect, since we last
Yep.
talked, but we're both on the plane going to see TCU play UNC.
Yep.
And then I hear in the background somebody says, "Hey, Jimmy Flint." Turns out it's you. I turn around immediately, see you, and I go, "Hey, Reid Ryan," like a reflex.
Well, am I the only one that calls you Jimmy Flint all the time?
Well, my wife does, Cheryl.
Okay,
And my
perfect.
friends call me Jimmy. So
Yeah.
yes, people that are listening to the pod are like, I know him as Jim.
Yeah.
My boss at Nike actually made my change my name to Jim.
Okay, very cool.
That I look too young, seriously.
Well, there you go. I like it.
Yeah, but I realized when I said it that like a couple of people's ears perked up.
Yeah.
Like, they didn't know who I was, but they knew who you were. And so I wanted to engage with you a little bit more, but we were kind of across the aisle and it just didn't feel right because all of a sudden these other people had perked up and were like prairie dogs. Like,
Well, it was the whole plane was TCU people. So yeah, your wife was behind you. My wife was, I think, behind me. I had the offensive lineman's dad sitting by me, and so it was a fun flight. But yeah, we didn't get to visit a whole lot.
no. And so this is an opportunity to kind of catch up a little bit and share some of the past experiences we've had and some of the things that you're doing kind of going forward.
Yeah.
And I felt like one of the more interesting things as I was looking back was in 1991, it was a pretty big deal that you were considering transferring to another school. And you ended up moving from Texas to TCU. And I love the
Mhm.
story you told me about the recruiting difference between the two schools at the time and how you ultimately ended up at TCU. I look back in the archives, it looked like you were considering Pepperdine and maybe a JUCO, but you just wanted more time on the mound. I mean, can you kind of go back to that experience?
Well, yeah. So, I ended up going to the University of Texas on a baseball scholarship and was there 1 year and only played in a handful of games. A little bit different era. We played 30 fall games, as you know, and 60
Yeah.
spring games. And I think it was more than 60 spring games. And, then if you got in the playoffs, it was even more. And so I played in a handful in the fall. I played in a handful in the spring. And what I noticed at the University of Texas at the time was its semester, we had all these JUCO guys come in. And the bottom line is in life, in baseball, if you're not getting to play, you need to go fail. You need to learn. You need to fail again, learn again. You're just not going to get better. And I realized that, kind of Coach Gus's MO, Cliff Gustafson, who was a coach at the time, was like, grab all the talent I can get, keep it from going other places, and then we'll kind of let the cream rise to the top, which is normally older guys. And my dad was playing for the Texas Rangers, Nolan Ryan, and Lance Brown had been a coach at Rice when my dad played for the Astros. And so I knew Lance. I'd come on a recruiting trip to TCU. The facilities weren't great. And I had grown up wanting to go to the University of Texas. And so that was just kind of, front and center in my mind. But I knew I needed to go somewhere where somebody was going to care about me and somebody was going to give me an opportunity to play. And then Texas said, we're not going to let you transfer within conference. Different rules, no transfer portal back then. And so it was Southern Miss, it was Oklahoma, Pepperdine. I was looking at all the schools outside of Southwest Conference because it wasn't even, SEC or Big 12 back then. So anyway, long story short, I ended up at TCU. It was a great decision. Met my wife there, met so many good friends there, and I've had a great relationship with TCU ever since then.
Yeah, and you are one of the few people, I don't know if it's ever, but actually that has won 2 conference championships, one with Texas in 91, and then huge accomplishment in 94, TCU won the conference championship again with, I think, a 14-4 record that year. It was quite the turnaround.
Yeah, it was fun. We were able to kind of find a bunch of guys that were older, that were at other schools, and that wanted to, end up coming together to do something great. And more than winning that one, what I think was super cool is we kind of set TCU on a path where baseball became important. And then very shortly after that, they started winning year after year after year. And really for the last, call it all of the 2000s, for 25 years, they've been a college baseball powerhouse, top 25 every single year. And so I kind of felt like our team really launched that. But when you look back at that run, it was different then. I feel like the old guy now. There was not the super regionals. You had one regional with 6 teams, double elimination to go to the College World Series. And we really were sitting pretty. We had an 8-run lead in the 8th inning against Oklahoma State and lost. And
In
then out
Stillwater.
hit
Yeah.
Cal State Fullerton, and I think lost 3-1. They had a first-round draft pick, Dante Powell, that ended up walking, I think, 3 times and stole 6 bases, and that's what beat us. And you just look back and say, God, it was right there for the taking to go to that College World Series for the first time. And we let it slip away, but we really, formed the basis of what's become a great program.
Yeah, I don't think you or the program from that era necessarily gets as much credit as it potentially deserves, because it was a tipping point where TCU was at the bottom half, the doormat, if you will, of the Southwest Conference for multiple consecutive years in a row. And
Mm-hmm.
you helped serve as the catalyst to turn that around, not only from what you did with pitching, but from what you did with the recruiting and what you did with the communications, and just providing a positive culture for everybody to feel like they were part of something bigger than themselves. So I want to give you tons of credit for that. They probably don't give you enough credit for that, in terms of that was a stepping stone to the bigger, and like you said, College World Series things that happened. Without the 94 team that you helped lead, I don't think it gets there.
Well, there were a lot of guys on that team, Clay Carruthers, J.J. Gotch, Brad Wallace.
For sure.
Yeah, Tim Grieve, people that were in that, kind of have stayed close to the program. But I think what was most important was our stadium was terrible. It was worse than a high school field.
I
And as
remember.
you know,
Yeah.
that team really got the ball and the momentum rolling to get the new stadium. And then there was actually a bunch of older guys before us that had gone to the conference tournament for the first time, the Jared Shopes and, Brad Firestones and all those guys that really
Travis,
supported us
Britt.
in
Yeah.
94. And those kind of eras came together to push to say, we got to have a better stadium where we're going to be good at baseball. And we got it. And everybody contributed to it. And, the rest is history now.
Yeah. It's a whole new level for sure. Well, let's talk about somebody that I think you might be able to relate to, in terms of, the thing that's different now than maybe back then is this whole NIL stuff. Also, if you will, social media, because it's out there in front of everybody. And there is probably a lot more, I don't know if you'd agree or disagree, but more scrutiny, possibly, arguably. And there's another guy at Texas, Arch Manning,
Yeah.
and he's been through a lot lately. Started out preseason #1 ranking, spent 2 years at Texas. You may even know him. I don't know if you've talked to him or anything like
Yep.
that. And
I
that
do.
isn't even it's almost like a zoomed out version of this. What would you say, given what you've been through and the experiences that you've had, that he might be considering? Because you've been involved in sports your whole
Yeah.
life. What?
Well, look, I've got to meet Arch before. We were part of a group that hosted him for an event here in Houston
Okay.
with his dad. I've met both Peyton and Eli and Archie on many occasions. I wouldn't say we're family friends, but I've met them all over the years, just through our circles. And, I think Arch has a really good level head about him. I love, Cooper. And at the event that we were at in Houston, Cooper summed it up. He said, everybody loves the backup quarterbacks, parents and family, because, they invite you everywhere. And all of a sudden you lose that first game of the year, whenever that is, and nobody invites you to play golf anymore. And it turns quickly. And so, I think in a lot of ways he's been set up to fail. I grew up as somebody who always got compared to my dad.
Yeah.
And it's unfair because my gifts and abilities were different than my dad's. And, if you did well, people would say, oh, yeah, he's Nolan Ryan's son. He's supposed to do well. He should be, the best, whatever, blah, blah, blah. If you don't, people can't wait to write you off. And so I think, Arch is in almost a no-win situation. He has to win a national championship to even have any kind of validation. Otherwise, you
Meet
see,
expectations.
yeah, to meet, yeah, and you see the memes of of he wouldn't even be playing if his name wasn't Arch Manning and all that. The bottom line is the kid had, I think, 2 starts before this season. They don't have a great offensive line.
No, they don't.
They don't really have a great running game. They've got a good defense, although
Great.
Florida did some things to them. And so I think, unfortunately, having been around the UT program and knowing a lot of alums, their expectation is very high. And I think Arch will be fine. I think you're going to see him being, an NFL quarterback one day. I think you'll see him be a solid college quarterback. The throws are in there. But he didn't, it's been a long time. He played at a private high school in New Orleans and then hasn't really played for 2 years except for running situations, as we saw in the A&M game last year. And, it takes time. People have to, nobody rolls out great day one. And, so anyway, I think if you asked his family and with truth serum, they probably would say he's coming on about like they thought he was.
Fair enough. So I was actually able to pull a clip. It's funny you mentioned backup quarterback. So you probably know Chase Daniel too, following sports. I mean, he was a backup quarterback for 14 years in the NFL, had to be a very likable guy. And so he's on the Dan Patrick show, and they ask him basically the question that I asked you. And so I wanted you to hear a little bit of his feedback.
Yeah.
Right. It's always good to hear Chase talk. You good guy, right?
Yeah, and I remember when he played at Missouri and they had those battles with Kansas. Yeah, so I haven't broken down any tape, looked at Arch other than just watching at a sports bar at my house. But what he says makes perfect sense. I felt like because he's been, rushed so much with the offensive line that he looks like he's got happy feet to me. But I'm not a quarterback or a guru or anything with football, so I'm just a fan. And that makes perfect sense what Chase just said.
So down this path, and I'm going to take this back to baseball where you spent most of your time. Can you imagine if there'd been NIL around in the early 90s? I mean, and seemingly
it would have been good for me. It would have been very good for me. Yeah.
The time makes the person doesn't make the time.
Yeah, right? Well, what's funny is I tell everybody I missed out on NIL in college, which would have been really good for me. And now all of the minor league baseball players are part of a union, and I missed out on that as well. So I'm going to try to see if I can get my back pay for both.
Well, I mean, now that you're in, we'll call it management, right? You own 2 teams. You've been at management at the major league level, probably every level in between. How do you see like NIL helping? I'm talking, there's a lot of car dealers that follow this podcast. That's the industry I've been in for 27 years. So you've had great relationships that you've established with Honda, Ford, local retailers. How would you tell car dealers that are listening today in terms of how they might get involved at the local little league level all the way up to the corporate major league level?
Yeah. So, a couple different questions there,
Sure. A lot to unpack.
Yeah. On the NIL, I'll start with that. I am not against anybody having the ability to make money. And I think there's true NIL people. So if you look at somebody like, maybe the gymnast at LSU who's Libby Dunn. Okay, yeah. She's a pretty girl, and she is selling a lot of products for people and helping them.
I'm wearing a Viore shirt today.
That's right. Yeah, make money. So she should be allowed. She has a platform. She's an athlete. There are companies that want to connect with athletes on various reasons. And so I think all of that should be allowed. Plus, some of these people today are coming in with social media following, some of these high school kids of, million people. And, all of a sudden they're going to go play a sport and you're going to tell them they can't do that. It's a different career for them. And they've created, something just like an actor or a musician would have. So I don't think you're ever putting that genie back in the bottle. As far as car dealers go, I've had amazing relationships with car dealers over my professional career. They're such an integral part of sports. I mean, whether it's, Niall Maxwell, family of dealerships in Austin, or Mac DeLop and the Honda folks, Stacy Gilman, really good friends of mine, or Finn Ewing up in the Dallas-Fort Worth market, or Roger Williams. I mean, car dealerships have supported sports, whether it's youth, high school, college, or professional, for many, many years. And I think the reason why is for most families, this is a big decision that they make financially, probably after housing, their second, biggest financial decision as a family. And the business of sports is all about families. Whether it's the Astros, the Round Rock Express, or the San Antonio Missions, or a high school team, baseball, football, sports brings families together, and it gets all of these kids and people. My sister-in-law has kids that are playing high school sports now, but they've been playing all the travel teams. And, as a young person, she would have never in her life ever said she was going to drive a minivan, like never. And you know what? They're like the minivan connoisseurs because they're like ice chest, gear, everything, and so it's just funny how life evolves. But that car dealer relationship with the local community is so awesome. And when nothing gets more local than the sports teams and individual communities. And so I'm appreciative of all of those people supporting me and my businesses over the years. And, you got to know our job is to help sell some cars. And hopefully we've done that along the way.
No doubt. I think it's a great way to get connected, and both groups are competitive. If you're looking at the Venn diagram of what they share in common, Mac had a suite, and so did all the Honda dealers. But you would see him, and his engagement level at those games was incredibly high. And I'll never forget the story when I first saw you there. I was excited to see you at a game. The Astros were woefully bad. They lost 100 games 3 years in a row, and I even asked you kind of quietly on the side, "Hey, Reid, is this really the right time to be taking this job?" Do you remember what you said?
Yeah, you want to start at the bottom. Yeah, it
Yeah.
doesn't get worse from here. Yeah,
Yeah, it's like a Drake song. Started at the bottom, and now we're
that's
here.
it.
You were on the field in LA when the World Series presentation. The trophy was made, Game
Yep.
7. I mean, that had to be an incredible moment.
No, it was. The run with the Astros, I guess I ended up being there for like 7.5 years, was incredible because it was my childhood team. I grew up with my dad playing on the first team that ever went to the playoffs. And obviously 86 was a great series and a great team. And then, we broke through in 15. And then, really for the last 10 years from, 15 on, it's been the Astros almost every single year in the playoffs. And so just to be a small part of that and help represent the organization and the community, a team that I loved, and the alumni and just some of the business partners that have, still been with the organization from the time my dad played. It was truly special. But, what's interesting about sports is there's a season for everybody. And, seasons come and go, but relationships last forever. And so I can look back on, my life and say, man, what a great decade that my family and I, had a lot to do with. I got the Hall of Fame pick there behind me.
Yeah.
I started the Astros Hall of Fame, which will always be very meaningful to me. Put the broadcast team together, which people love, with Callis, Blum, and Julia, and did a lot of things at Minute Maid Park that fans really, really enjoy. So I can, hold my head high, not only having a ring and a trophy, but saying that, ended up leaving the organization better than I found it.
Yeah, no, you've always been able to make things bigger than just there. You've created communities. In fact, you're one of the few people, in interviews when people are looking to work for my company or one of my companies, I often ask them, are you better with people or numbers? And you're kind of my standard on that because you're one of the few people that I know that are actually incredible at both. And so I have them pick, but you're one of the guys that I'll say, as much as you are good with the analytics, you also were literally the mayor of the stadium. You were out meeting, greeting, talking to people, and that is one of the things that I miss today about the experience at the ballpark. But it's certainly
Yeah.
something that you brought to the table to help bring the community together. But I'm not going to talk about that. I'm going to ask you about this. Like, what do you think the analytics and the AI and the who knows what technology is now changing baseball forevermore? Are you seeing things that you think are going to impact the game in a few years that are happening now that you'd like to talk about? Or I remember one time talking to you on the boat with Mac about how they wanted you to put OPS up instead of home runs, average, and RBI.
Yeah,
Remember that?
at the end of the day, look, you have to give fans what they want, and you're not going to be in business long if you're trying to tell your customers they shouldn't like X, they should like Y. And if they naturally move to liking Y better, then you have to pivot and be nimble with that. Um, the analytics, kind of an interesting question. I am more a people person than a numbers
Okay.
person.
All
I
right.
know the numbers well enough to be able to understand and make decisions, but it's not where my
Yeah.
passion lies. I get energy off people and trying to bring groups together to accomplish a goal. And
Okay.
that's kind of been, and I think it's know thyself, and then know what you're good at, know what you're not good at. And so what I used to say with the Astros was I could really literally have done every job in the organization at some point. But the jobs I like best are where you put, Altuve at second base, you don't put him in, left field. Put the players where they play best and make sure everybody's getting the tools they need. And so, the growth of analytics and data, I think, is awesome. But if you look at the industry, and the baseball's always had data, average ERA. I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
on base percentage, they've had this forever, and they're very good measurement tools. And I think the predictive tools that the Astros developed also were helpful. But we were creating a game that the fans didn't want to watch, which was one true outcome, either a home run, a strikeout, or a walk. And so MLB realized that, as I was saying earlier, that's not the game fans wanted, and we were losing fans. Fans want to see athleticism. They want to see steals. They want to see great defensive plays. They get a ball hit hard. They don't want to have five guys standing on one side of the field. So I think they've implemented rule changes like no shifting,
Yes.
like the minimum relief pitchers facing batters, mound visits, things to make the game go quicker and encourage more action on the field. And I think the thing with technology that I'm most excited about for next season at the major league level will be something we've pioneered for 4 years in the Austin market with our AAA team in Round Rock, and that's the automatic ball strike, which will be implemented next year with a challenge system at the major league level. And so it really is great because people want to get it right. The umpire can control, really dictate taking a team out of
I've
an
seen
inning.
it.
And so now it really levels that playing field. And I think it's just going to be great for the game. Fans are going to enjoy it. And, I think we're now giving the fans more of a game that they want to see.
Sounds good. And I believe you're on a board of directors with Major League Baseball in some capacity, and you're helping to shape the game. And so we all appreciate that. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, and I've switched my roles around a little bit. I'm now on a governance committee, but yeah, when I was on the board of basically the player development system for the minor leagues, it was fun, but a lot of time as well. So I'm happy with where I'm going now.
So so let's talk. You mentioned passion. Let's talk about that for a second, because one of the things is probably the common ground that you and I had was our passion for basketball.
Mm-hmm.
And it's actually how you connected with your wife. I remember it kind of started out like, I don't know if you were the first person or who the first person was. I knew Shell, and she needed some baseball players. It might have been me. I'm not trying to take credit. It
Yeah,
might have been you. I'm not sure, but she's like, I need some baseball players to help run practice with him. And there were five of us, six of us. I think Chris Eddy was one of them. I don't
yeah.
know who the other, but JJ might have been another. I'm not sure who the fourth or fifth would have
We,
been.
we had a little bit of so you came to me from talking to
Okay.
Shell. I went to Lance Brown, who was our head coach,
Yeah.
and got permission because last thing we needed was a bunch of people blowing out L's and knees and
ACL.
everything
Of course.
else. Uh, and he was funny. He said, "Yeah, don't get hurt. Y'all will be in better shape." And that's how I ended up meeting my wife. Was the baseball players. We'd round up 5 or 6 guys. They didn't have a men's practice team like every women's
School
top
does not.
25
Yeah.
team has now. And it was a great way to get in shape and have a lot of fun. And I ended up meeting my wife. You probably guarded her because she was a point guard. I was always down in the blocks, I think, because we didn't
I,
have very tall players on the baseball team. But you
I
know,
did. And a little known story that nobody knows. After that first practice where you're just huffing and puffing, I
yeah,
went back and literally laid down on the floor at Moncrief Hall and just stared up at the ceiling, hoping that I was going to be able to get up. And that was me in my mid 20s. You've been playing basketball for all these years. We played in a men's league later.
yeah,
You asked me, you invited me to play on the team, and you said, "Hey," I said yes quickly because I was in. And you go, "But look, there's only going to be 6 of us,
yeah,
and so if you got to be there, Flint." I'm like, "Okay, I'm there. I'm
yeah.
there." And then you're able to recruit talent like Ben Grieve. And did you ever entertain the idea of playing D1 basketball? I've seen you dunk the basketball. I've seen you. Most people don't know how good you are at basketball. Maybe Nicole does. Maybe your
Yeah.
family does. But it's kind of
Well, it's
a
funny. Now I play
secret.
tennis. I gave basketball up a couple years ago. I'll give you the story on that. But
Okay.
basketball was my first love, and I
Yeah.
had some opportunities to play in college. Nowhere near the Division I level. The bottom line is I just wasn't a good enough shooter. I
Okay.
was kind of a scrappy player, and at 6'2", if I had been 6'5", 6'6", there's probably a role for somebody like that at Division One. And so, my dad came to me one day and was like, "Hey, you can go play, and there's some, great schools, the Trinities of the world, Abilene Christian, places like that." He's like, "Or you can go to Texas A&M, Texas, TCU, OU, anywhere in baseball, and you have to kind of decide what you want to do. If you want to try to play professionally." He goes, "I think you can one day." He kind of told me what I needed to improve on. But I always loved playing basketball. And so you and I were in teams. I played men's league probably until my 40s. And when I took the job with the Astros as the president, I had always played in Y leagues, whether in Fort Worth and Austin. So I joined a downtown Y league. And I looked around one day and I was 20 years older than every other dude on the court. Okay. I think I was the only guy with a job. Okay. And I know I was the only guy married with 3 kids. Okay. And so I stole the ball mid-court, went in for a layup, and some, guy came rolling down, took me out, and I rolled my ankle. And Derek Jeter was retiring like the next week. And so I'm out on the field presenting him. I got a suit on and a boot on my leg. And I was presenting him with like a cowboy hat and boots and everything, the whole retirement deal. And I got back over to the dugout. My wife was sitting on the front row, and Nicole well, and she goes, "You look like an absolute tool." She goes, "You are too old to be playing basketball." She's like, "You need to start playing tennis."
So,
And
so
from
his
that moment on,
retirement
I've
was
been
your
playing
retirement from
tennis like 4
basketball.
days a week now. I play tennis all the time. I'm in a bunch of leagues now for men's tennis, and it's the itch to compete. You're an athlete. It's the itch to compete, and
Yeah,
to have
and
camaraderie with other people and be able to drink a cold beer when you're done and BS and just try to relive that teamwork that you never really truly replace when you stop playing a sport.
yes. And so, kind of to close us out today, I wanted to mention you're doing some work. You do a great job with the interviews. I believe David Robinson previously.
Yep.
Is Drew Brees coming up?
Yep.
That event I think is sold out. I could be wrong. Or
Yeah, no, if people want to buy tickets to the Drew Brees event, it's coming up here at the end of the month, October 2025. Go to the Nolan Ryan Foundation.org, Nolan Ryan Foundation. We do a dinner and a golf tournament. The golf tournament is sold out because nobody wants a 6-hour round. So we limit it to very small teams, one per hole. And so that is sold out. The dinner is at Kalahari Resort in Round Rock, which is world's largest indoor water park, but it has a big convention center with it and plenty of room there. And it'll be a sit-down interview with Drew Brees, who, of course, is from Texas, played at Westlake High School in the Austin market, and then obviously at Purdue.
I believe you conduct the interview. Is that fair? Or
yeah, I'll do the interview with him. Yeah. And what I like to do when I do these interviews, much like you're doing, is go all the way back, the stuff that people don't get on Wikipedia, like tell us what it was like, everything from Little League to your first Pop Warner to, college, why Purdue, meeting your wife, challenges, raising kids. So we try to go deep in a very intimate setting and raise money from the Nolan Ryan Foundation, which ends up going to scholarships for a lot of first-generation college students. But also we support a lot of baseball, softball. We've endowed the RBI Austin, which is revitalizing baseball in the inner cities. So it helps underserved kids kind of learn great life lessons through the game of baseball. We've done a lot for, women, a battered women's shelter. I mean, we really, it's our family foundation. We have a grant program where we're, individual nonprofits and people in need. A couple years ago, it's a really sad story, 15-year-old boy, paralyzed from the neck down, making a tackle in football, freshman football, and single mother. And so we ended up buying him a van and paying for his therapy. And then we ended up hiring him at Dell Diamond. He's now a greeter, and he's one of everybody's favorite employees. And he's the first guy when he's feeling good. He only comes when he's feeling good. He's the first guy you see when you walk in Dell Diamond. So we've given him a lot of purpose to life, knowing that he's got a role on the team as well, and that we need that smiling face to be the first thing people see when they come to the ball game.
So on behalf of all the car dealers out there, I'm going to make a small donation to the foundation, this year to say, thank you for being on the show and for all that you do for not just baseball, but I think sports in general is one of those things. You said you started the Astros Hall of Fame.
Mm-hmm.
I checked. You're not yet in the TCU Sports Hall of Fame, but when you are there, you be sure to let me know, or I'll let you know if we get that deal put together. You're so deserving of it, and I can't wait to be sitting there when that happens.
Well, man, I appreciate it. The good thing about something like the TCU Sports Hall of Fame is I don't think I'm worthy of being in that Hall of Fame, because every generation we've gotten better and better players, and today you look up at how many guys in the NFL, how many guys in Major League Baseball, NBA, it makes you feel really good that, like, we were part of the group that went from being bottom to being to the top, and that all these other people have sustained it. So I'm good seeing the Royce Huffmans of the world.
We're going to have a different conversation. We're going to have a different conversation about that in terms of what you've meant to the school and the trajectory we've taken athletically. I just want to, not only on my behalf, but on the behalf of all TCU, thank you. We appreciate you, man.
Well, I appreciate you. And hey, we need to get a win this weekend. So let's see. You're only as good as your last game in this industry. We gotta keep it rolling.
No doubt. Tell Nicole hello. I'll tell Cheryl hello for you.
Yeah.
Have a great time. And yes, go Frogs.
Thanks, Jim. Appreciate it. Go Frogs.